Graveyards, as all of you who wanted to do so have learned. But last week I did make my way to Fabius for my second trip here, and I visited the beach cemetery. And I have to tell you where that is in case you don't know. On Oran Delphi Road. I visited the Apulia Cemetery, where I had been once before, but I found something I missed. And I visited Evergreen, and I have been to the old cemetery across the street, and I have been to the cemetery on Town Line Road. And I saw my first cast iron stone in the beach cemetery, which I was pleased about. Last time I was here, I talked a little in general about cemeteries and graveyards, so you know I'm interested, and that's my hobby. But moving past that, I have an additional hobby of collecting epitaphs. It is closely related. I started because I met a woman who was so enthusiastic about collecting epitaphs that I thought that I'd better try, and I have started collecting them. I have probably 1,000 different epitaphs, and I visited maybe 200 cemeteries or so to get those. Again, it's an interesting hobby, but when I asked my new friend some questions, she didn't know the answers. So I decided I would also study what I could find, any literature I could find about epitaphs. So I've learned a little about the background, and that's what I'm going to share tonight. And also I have some slides, and I have some of my favorites to tell you about. First of all, an epitaph, I'm thinking everyone here knows what it is, but then sometimes I'm surprised that sometimes people don't know. Webster's Dictionary says it's an inscription on a gravestone in memory of the person buried there. So these would be words other than the name and the dates, something special to commemorate the person. Here's an example of an epitaph, and throughout here I've tried to pick some of my favorites. Her life was virtuous, and her death was happy. She was the mother of 6 children. To direct them to the place where rest her earthly remains, and in tender recollection of her many virtues, her husband inscribes this stone. So it's a little bit of genealogy. It's a little bit of telling about the woman. She was virtuous, and she had 6 children. I'd like to talk a little about the who, what, where, when, why kinds of information, and then I'll show you some slides. Why were epitaphs used? They were symbols of love and remembrance for the deceased. And they were normally picked out by family members and just try to give some personalization to the gravestone. The reason that I think it's important to study them is that it tells the history of your community. Every epitaph here tells a little bit either about the person or about the social climate at the time or about how religious a group in a graveyard might be or what religion was like at the time. And it really is a study of literature, poetry, the Bible, religion, geography, social behavior in the community. And all that, by copying the epitaphs, you can make some judgments about the community. I wondered when epitaphs began and where they came from. And I was very surprised to learn, no one can put an exact finger on it, but they have been used since ancient times. The Egyptians had epitaphs, the Greeks had epitaphs, the Romans had epitaphs. And I would like to tell you a beautiful Roman epitaph that makes sense today. May the earth lie light upon thee. Isn't that a nice one? Used in Roman times. Now, how they got to Fabius, New York, from the ancient civilizations. The Romans went to England and occupied England and took this custom to England with them. So the British people started using epitaphs. Then the Pilgrims came across the ocean to New England and brought the custom with them. So the people in New England started using epitaphs. Then our early settlers moved here to upstate New York from New England and brought the custom with them. So it's an old custom and has its ups and downs in popularity. Had a real important period of time, I would say between maybe 1810, 1820, they began with epitaphs in this area when the tombstone carvers got somewhat proficient. And they remained popular until about the 1850s. And by then, people thought they were old-fashioned, out of style, and younger people didn't want to use epitaphs anymore. It wasn't the thing to do. Victorian people wanted big gravestones, monumental reminders of their loved ones. And for the most part, they just skipped the epitaphs. There are a few short ones in a Victorian graveyard. Something like saved by grace or gone but not forgotten. But the long, complicated ones of the past were out of style. The very earliest gravestone art and epitaphs showed the religious culture of the time. It was very bleak. It was very stark. God was thought of as powerful and revengeful. The epitaphs had opinions and dire warnings that death would come to you too. The most frequent early one, and a number of you will recognize this, strangers stop and cast an eye, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you must be. Prepare for death and follow me. Now that was one of the more upbeat early warnings. There are worse ones. In the 1820s, there was a religious revival period when Methodist ministers, circuit riding ministers, went around on horseback and brought religion to a number of the communities. And they were spreading the word of salvation by faith and eternal peace. The epitaphs changed their tone along with that new feeling of religion. It changed to soothing words for the bereaved, and you'll pick out their belief in everlasting life. This is from Apulia, 1834, so they'd had maybe 10 or 15 years of this new belief in religion. Her gentle spirit soars away to dwell with God in endless day. Now that's a much nicer thought of death than I'm here in the ground and you're going to be here someday. I also wondered quite a bit about who wrote these epitaphs. If in a period of 3 years I can collect 1,000 different ones. I thought there would be a lot of different people writing them. But it turns out there were certain groups of people who wrote them. Clergymen wrote them. The local clergy might prepare a special epitaph for you at your death. Distinguished literary people wrote epitaphs that people then plagiarized or changed a few words to make it more meaningful. Poets wrote epitaphs. Family members wrote epitaphs. Neighbors, or someone who lived in Fabius who had a little flair for writing might have produced a number of these. There also were epitaph books. In England, they were produced before 1800, and they would be a book of maybe 600 epitaphs. And when you selected the gravestone, the carver would let you pick out what epitaph you wanted. So, and those were mostly written by professionals.
Have you ever seen one of those books?
Yes, I have. I was very fortunate through interlibrary loan. I got a copy of one of those books. It was fascinating. There were epitaphs for slaves, epitaphs for servants, epitaphs for every occupation. There were epitaphs for grave diggers, specialized. I have not seen many of that type around here, but they were very interesting to me. There were special books of epitaphs for children because so many children died young and families wanted to commemorate them. People used hymns or poems or literature for their, if they did create one, they might use that as a way of creative thinking. There are three types of epitaphs, and when I understood this, it made a lot of difference to me when I'm out reading them. It gives you sort of an insight. The first is there's a voice from the grave, or the deceased person's voice, a first-person voice speaking. And this is an example. This was in, I say Kinney settlement. Do you say Kinney or Keeney? Kinney settlement. This is from 1813, and this is one of the early ones that isn't quite so upbeat. But it's the voice of the deceased speaking. Ye living that my tomb doth view, remember here is room for you. So she is speaking to the living. The second form of epitaph is the voice of the living, either speaking to the deceased person or speaking about the deceased person. From Apulia, this is 1821, Sally Fox, and someone is speaking about her. Affliction sore, long time she bore. Physician's skill was vain, till God did send death as a friend to ease her from her pains. So they're speaking about her. And then there's the neutral form, and that might be a Bible verse or a poem. It's not anyone's voice, just a neutral. One that's very common, blessed are the dead that die in the Lord. There are short epitaphs and long epitaphs. I'm going to show you some examples of each, a one word or a two word, and there are some that cover the entire stone. Some of the long ones, I'm finding now people are using epitaphs again. I think people want personalization. I think maybe most of you have noticed either a photograph on a gravestone or some kind of special carving. It might be someone's family farm or motorcycle or something that means a great deal to the deceased. And epitaphs are appearing again in graveyards.
And you refer to that as an epitaph?
No, but it's a symbol,
Yes.
symbol. But the epitaphs, the words, are appearing again. And some of the long ones I have are current, and it's fun to see those. I used to stay away from the new sections in graveyards and cemeteries, but now I work my way through those too and see what I can find. This is almost mind-boggling, the different categories that I've found. I have found hymns, poems, people's last words, or so it's said, the last words that they said were such and such. Bible verses, literature. There are epitaphs about the cause of death or a person's illness, such as I just read, the woman suffered a long time. Afterlife, tears, angels, friendship. There's something for everyone. Some of the early gravestones are very primitive and some are very finely done. The people who carved them in the early days were laborers, they cut the stone, and artisans, they carved the stone. So the language reflects the skills of the common man. And keep in mind, there was no Webster's Dictionary until about 1830. I love to find examples of phonetic spelling. And it wasn't just the gravestone carvers. Everyone spelled like that. I'm going to see a few slides, then I'm going to stop and say a few more words and then show a few more slides, kind of break it up a little bit. And we'll see how we do. I showed you this one before, and a few of these might be repeats for you, but not all of them. And I was under the early impression that that stone had fallen off, but someone here pointed out to me that's not the case. There's a different stone resting. There are two different stones here. But my point is made that we've got to get all of the information we can off of old gravestones because they don't last forever. These schist stones drop their roots sooner or later. They're fairly easy to read when they're in place, but when they're not, they're not. Marble stones, acid rain takes away the inscriptions, and they're very hard to read once they start degrading. So to me, it's important to get these well. And I may have put my 2 cents in about this once before too, but I'll say it again. This was a community that meant well and had a scout troop take down all of the old stones and lay them flat. And it is just the end of stones. They just, the water and snow and ice gets rid of them. I try to keep my lips zipped when I go to that community, but I don't like it. Okay, we're going to look at some primitive carvers' work. You can see a little problem there, the backward D for die. This is 1813. A little problem here with primitive work. For a more, M-O-O-R, and the E is up on the line above. Yeah. And we have some wonderful carvers. They're very good, very skilled people. Oftentimes, a master carver during the winter would do all of this design work and maybe do the in memory of. And then at the time of the death, someone else might actually carve the name of the graves. This is a very skilled carver. Probably came from New England and brought the skill to it. Another skilled carver. This gentleman is from Virgil, which is in Portland County. But I noticed when I was in Ophelia, some of his stones are up here. So he was on the road selling stones everywhere he could.
Is it signed? I mean, how do you know that?
I don't think it was signed here, but I have seen signed one, and he has very distinctive work. The letters are very deeply carved, and look at the Miss and Amanda. There's a big circular depression in some of his letters. And the way down at the bottom, one month, that M is particularly notable for that carver. This one is, I think, someone in training. The top line, in memory, especially the end, looks pretty good. And then as you go further down, it sort of disintegrates in skill. In memory of the wife of John Cole, who died in the year 1825, December, age 45, and 3 months. Oh, may her virtues ever be remembered.
Did you look at the stone to bring it out?
Yes, I did.
Uh,
And I'm going to say a few things about photographing epitaphs. I've learned the hard way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I have some tricks for both reading and photographing. And I'll tell you about them, particularly photographing. There are times of the day, I may have told you this before, most of the stones in our area, or many of them, face west. And the proper time when the sun is at the right angle, Eastern Standard Time, 1:30, or Daylight Savings Time, 2:30. If they face east, it's just the converse, just subtract the right number of hours. And south-facing stones, late afternoon seems to work well. I also, if the time isn't right or I can't see them, I clean the stones or spray water on them. That helps. And sometimes the water will evaporate sooner on the stone than the engraving. And they stay a little bit darker, and if you get that just right, that works. Some are just almost impossible to photograph. If they're in a dark cemetery where there are a lot of evergreen trees, facing the wrong way and tipped, it's hard. Some of my best ones are like that. I can't seem to get a good photograph. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's for me. I'll talk about it. Sorry, I'm on the your work. We have short epitaphs. Here's one, dairy farmer. Tells about him, tells what his family thought was important to him. Gone home. That's a short one. And this is a Victorian stone, and that's when they were doing the short ones. We have long ones. This is a current day stone. Dr. Keith Dwayne Holmes, educator, biographer, poet, tells when he was born, where he went to college, all of the books he wrote, who his children were, who his wife was. Now, someday a genealogist is going to love this.
Oh, yes.
And then there is a true epitaph, an admonition to all young sons. It is man's destiny to devise and promote improvements in his own generation, thereby enriching the lives of others while repaying in his own time that worthy debt of having been born. Here's another long one. I'm not going to read this whole one, but it has to do with when we die, our pets are going to be waiting for us. Now, here we have a few spelling problems, and I wanted to show you these. Again, this is phonetic spelling. It was the spelling of the day. And have, there, and T-H-A-I-R, there. This one has big trouble. And this is similar to the one I read earlier, or it's supposed to be. Affliction sore, long time I bore. Physicians were in vain, V-A-N-E. Physicians has a problem. Till God was pleased to give me ease and free me from my pain. And I haven't quite figured this out other than to see affliction sore, stop. I think they must have started carving another epitaph on there. And I'm not quite sure what happened, but something went wrong. Maybe it was reduced for quick sale. And I'm also going to point out the markings on that stone from either a mower or grasper and the cabinets. Ambition, B-I-S-S-I-O-N, disappointed. This is one where I sprayed it and then let it evaporate on the stone, so that some of it was highlighted. Sprayed it with water. None but experience, Miss Bell, can tell what anguish to bid their best friend farewell. Experience is spelled wrong. What anguish? That's all right. And their, T-H-E-R-E, best, B-E-S, friend farewell. And there is generous with a J. Jehovah with a G. As this fair youth drew near her end, she called to her bed each melancholy friend, and one by one this warning gave, prepare on earth in heaven to live. Warning is the problem here, W-A-R-N-G. Warning. Sleep on, fair babes, B-A-I-B-E-S, and take thy rest. God called thee home with one E. He thought it best with no H in thought. Then we have a problem when we forget a letter or a word. What are we going to do? Here we put a little caret in. Put that E. Got it in there. Olive, daughter of Daniel and Polly Mudge, and at some point someone realized she did have a married name. So they got Hutchins in there. Olive, Hutchins. I bet her parents, or her husband must have complained. That's who complained. Here's one, free me, but you'll see there was only one E there once, and they sort of squashed another one in between free and me. This is supposed to be the months of afflictions are over. It's a serious one, but nobody caught on, or they didn't fix it. It says the months of afflictions are over. Job died August 23rd, age and a Y per year. They forgot to put how old he was. So they put that on the line above. They put it 2. Here's a forgotten word, and they did the same thing, a little caret, and stuck it in there. I don't know. Or charged them more for more words, I don't know. There also are a lot of contractions in the early epitaphs, where a letter is left out and apostrophe is put in. Deep interred is RR apostrophe D. In earth's dark womb. The moldering with no E is apostrophe. Body lies. Someone told me they paid by the letter, and it may have been an effort to keep the cost down, or it may just be the way they abbreviated their spelling. Called, C-A-L-L apostrophe D. Killed, K-I-L-L apostrophe D. It's quite common to have. I think I probably showed you this before. It's one of my favorites. Eleanor was killed by the fall of a tree in 1811. Job and J-A-M, and then the E-S to make it James on the line above. figure out you may not have enough room to do everything you want to do. So how bright she is larger, and then you see he got started with shown and sort of had smaller lettering so that he would make sure to fit everything in. How bright she shone in social life as mother, sister, friend, and wife. The house of God, the shady road, witnessed her piety and love. These thoughts my morning heart doth cheer, and joy wipes off my new tear. I know I showed this before. This is my all-time favorite. In memo, great. Figured out there just wasn't room for 2 more letters.
How many times you just try to write happy birthday and you get almost
Yeah.
it doesn't fit?
You're right.
It's the same problem.
Same problem.
Same problem. And I guess you can start in the middle, but then you might run out on 2 sides. Third line, well, actually the first and the third line. Sleep on, fair babe, with an S on the line above, and take thy rest. God called the home a big H-O and a smaller M-E. He thought it was. Here we have died March with the H above. We got M-A-R-C and that little tiny H. How sweet a, the whole word needed to be added on my book. How sweet a flower. Companion of my earliest breath on the line above. Hither should your footsteps lead with a D above. Lo, in this grave I sleep in death from all my pain and sorrows free. Then we have just downright chiseling out to try to correct a mistake. And these are very infrequent, but I have a few of them. This infant flower, and something went very wrong, I don't know what. They chiseled it out and put in this, nipped so soon, will rise and bloom beyond the tomb. Here's one where the date must have had a problem, because that's chiseled away. Died November 13th, 1828. Then we have punctuation problems. Instead of an apostrophe, it looks like a comma to me. August with a lowercase a. And that's an abbreviation for month. M, upside down apostrophe, 2 commas, and an O.
Do you think that some of this could have come from not the ability of the stone cutter, but his education?
Yes.
Everybody wasn't an English teacher that went out and got
That's
stone.
right. It had to do with education. People had, if education, they had grade school education, and a lot of it had to do with phonetic spelling. They were taught to spell phonetically.
I suspect a lot of the people that cut these stones for it never knew that there was anything wrong with it.
That's right. I don't think they did either. I think if anyone pointed it out, it probably was the family. And maybe they didn't know.
And as you said, the dictionary, 1830.
1830. Webster's
So,
Dictionary.
you know, who's to say who's right and who's wrong?
That's right.
Until you had some kind of a
Base.
a guide, yeah, base.
That's right. Word divisions are, I guess I could have put this in with ran out of room, but here we have Nancy, wife of William Root, T-H-R, next line, O-O-P. Died March 3rd, 1826. Another thing I look for, and I'm sure I said this before, are the signatures of the carvers, because most people did not sign the work. You're a lucky person if you can find one that has a signature, or some kind of identification. P.P. Moore, Portlandville. This Cobb's marble, I believe it is abbreviation for manufacturing in Syracuse.
Weren't those names sometimes buried below ground?
Yes, sometimes
So
they
they-
are, so you don't see them if they are there. And now, even the stones themselves, in trying to read the epitaphs, are below ground. I take John along with me with a little trowel, and we work sometimes to sort of dig away unobtrusively without knocking the stone over to see what it says. That's what happened to me with the wonderful one I found in Peoria last week. And I made the mistake, I'm going to show you my tools that I always take with me, but I didn't have them. So I was using my hand, and it was wet, but I found it. A. Joyner, and he is the gentleman whose work I also saw down the road here. And it's very, his work is beautifully done and can be picked out. You'll see right below 73 years and 4 months. See there's an A.J. and that's his signature on that stone. It's an odd way to do it, but he did it. These are carved in, but he carves so skillfully. It's an optical illusion. Yeah.
Hard to make your eyes do that.
Yes, it is. But he just carved deeply and with angles. Old words, velvet. I'm sure everyone here knows what that is. Means widow.
It means widow, right? If he was still alive, she would be listed as
say
wife.
Yeah, wife. In memory of Alice Bolton, and here's another old word, consort to Elder D. Bolton, and that means spouse.
Right. We had a lady in our valley who found some of her ancestors and was a little embarrassed. We reassured her, no, it was a wife.
It's a real word.
Yeah, right.
Wife. We have a lot of abbreviations with superscript letters above the line, and we look in memory of James Grove Esquire, and there's no apostrophe, but it's ESQ with a little R above the line.
Did that denote someone, a lawyer, like we would say today, or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Some of them were, and some of them were just people in the community who were very important and were highly thought of. Here's daughter, D-A-U-G-H, with a little T above the line. And everyone knew that meant daughter, and I guess they did save some money by doing that, probably. I'm going to just turn this off for a minute. We'll talk about humor in the graveyard.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Just do that. Maybe some of you have used the internet or have purchased books with humorous epitaphs. And they are hilarious, but I want to caution you that they, for the most part, are not true. They're just fictitious. Scholars have tried to run some of these down to make them be real, and they just can't. Some of the book might say, give a humorous epitaph and say Rochester, New York, or Monroe County, and they have scoured and just cannot find them. So they're funny, but I just caution you to take them as fiction and humor. There are some epitaph-like words that are made up just for amusement. I guess maybe that first category is similar. Two famous ones. One I saw in Portland on the side of a Purity ice cream truck. Life is short, eat dessert first. Sounds like an epitaph. It isn't unless somebody has used it since then. Another one, the writer Dorothy Parker has one. I told you I was sick. Some people think that's real, and I'm thinking that probably by now somebody is using it. But it was invented just for fun. I told you I was sick. There is stonecutter humor, and again, it's like some of the things we've seen. It isn't meant to be humorous. The most famous one in Cooperstown was meant to read, Lord, she is thine. But on thine, he didn't put an E. So it was, Lord, she is thin. And there is genuine humor, but really in the thousands of gravestones I've looked at, it's very rare. And most of them are newer stones, where I think we have more of a sense of humor than people used to. They took it seriously. There are also very poignant epitaphs, and I have to say particularly the children. The parents mourned the children and made sure that they were remembered. In the beach cemetery, there's one for James Wallace from 1859. He was 3 years old. He touched our hearts with groans and cries. Now in the silent tomb he lies. For me, I've already said this, and I'm just going to do a little replay. For our communities, these epitaphs are priceless. We can learn about the communities, about the people who lived here, and about the times. Also, any genealogist here, and I bet almost all of you know what a find it is to find a gravestone and get some information that you didn't know. There's one in Apulia, William, the beloved son of George and Harriet Sharp of Little Sutton, Cheshire, England, born at Liverpool, England, April 27, 1861, died at Apulia, New York, September 4, 1888. Deeply mourned. So we have his date of birth, his date of death, his place of birth, place of death, where his parents' names, and where they were from. I think too, it shows the person's reputation. If an epitaph talks about a wonderful, upstanding person, it says what their reputation was. If it doesn't say anything, I don't know. I don't know what that implies. But nowadays, we have other ways of remembering people other than epitaphs. We have obituaries in the newspaper, which weren't available. We have memorial cards at calling hours. They usually give a memorial card, and that says something about the person's life. And there are newspaper memorials on the anniversary of someone's death. There might be a memorial that has a poem or some clue to what the family thought of the person. I'm going to show you some are my favorites, and some are just to give you an example of some epitaphs. And one or two of these you've seen before. Happy infant, early blessed, rest in peaceful slumber, rest. This is a death from 1797. I think that's really why I took the photo. It's over toward Cooperstown. It's really for our area, but I was impressed with the date. One thing I didn't mention is military service. It's very important for someone who served in the military, especially if you killed a nation. There's some kind of recognition of that. And this has to do with killed in the Battle of Cedar Creek, Virginia. aged 22 years. We've been single for. Hannah, wife of George Ellison, whene'er my children do draw nigh, and on this marble cast an eye, then on this willow drop a tear, for one who always loved you dear. Now the marble is referring to the marble monument, and the willow, as you can see, is the decoration on the stone. Rest-worthy nature, from thy toils, she's 80 years old, thy God has called thee home, to recompense with future joys thy deeds which thou hast done. So she's going to be rewarded for her good deeds. In memory of Thomas Boughton, who was killed by lightning. And you'll see the hourglass at the top of the stone, marking his time. And there is a lightning bolt. This is one of those that I cannot photograph and get everything I want. In memory of Dr. D.O.C.T. Mordecai Rowe, this is from 1825, and note that skilled carver who would not die to be so blessed. In memory of Content, consort of Noah Fox, and this is the death of 1818 of a consumption in the 60th year of her age. So consumption, which was TB. I was thinking I might have this on card. Beloved by all her acquaintances, an affectionate wife, a kind and tender mother, discharging all the duties of life as become a woman and a Christian, supported by grace, smiled in the face of the King of Terrors, and fell asleep in Jesus. Here lies a man of generous mind, though in this grave he is now confined. Beneath the cold and silent cloud, firm was the faith he placed in God. A granddaughter at his side. So he was generous, and he had a firm faith in God. And his granddaughter's buried there and doesn't have her own stone. This one is from Evergreen. I hope you've all seen the Pettits. I don't know a thing about the family. All I know is every Pettit gravestone I've seen has a wonderful epitaph on it. There's some in Evergreen and some that's in Kinney's settlement. Died at the 16th camp from Fort Rice, Dakota, in General Stanley's Yellowstone expedition, and 12 miles west of the crossing of the Little Missouri River, latitude 47 degrees north, longitude 104 degrees west. On the back of the stone costs $1. Lucretia Rounding Latham, a woman who served her country in the War of 1861 as hospital nurse at Winchester, City Point, and Annapolis.
Now that's a granite.
This would have been a replacement stone.
Yes, right. Probably in the 20th century.
At least 1890,
Yes.
maybe 1885. This is an example of some literature. This is a Whittier quote. I know not where this island lift their fronded ponds in air. I only know I can cannot drift beyond his lonely here. Another John Greenleaf Whittier. This is a current day stone, and it's The Barefoot Boy. And it's a poem about a little boy who has a wonderful time outdoors. Antiques were made in a time when time meant nothing for everlasting beauty. Oscar Penoyer, he was from Homer, and he was an antique dealer in Galactic.
Where was that stone?
Glenwood Cemetery in Homer.
He was from David.
Was he? Well, isn't that nice to know? I didn't know that. Cowboy's Prayer, this is in Willett, and this is a fellow who is still alive. He's picked out his own epitaph, and he has a rodeo. I think every Friday night in Willett they have a rodeo. Oh Lord, with your help we'll have a better world if you help us cowboys in the arena of life, as well as you'll guide us in this rodeo arena. So that when we make that last ride in the country up there, where the grass is green and lush and stirrup high, you'll tell us as we enter there, our entry fees, and I'll pay them. Bernal Pilbella Mackay, dynamic, loving wife, mother of 7, musician, teacher, and pathologist, archaeologist, community activist, deeply loved by family and friends, enhanced the lives of many. Now activist on new assignment. Another literary piece from Tennyson, and I'd like to point out that this poem was written in 1842 when no one had any thought of flight. Mr. Whitaker was a professor of aeronautics, and the poem says, "For I dipped into the future, far as human eye could see, saw the vision of the world and all the wonder that would be. Saw the heavens filled with commerce, artisans of magic sails, pilots of the purple twilight driving down across the waves." Tennyson surely saw into the future. Stephen DeWitt, he cleared the land and tilled the soil for me, and in this manner I respect and perpetuate his name.
Is that a white thing?
Yes, it is.
Okay, what?
White bronze or zinc.
It's a metal, and they molded it and fit it to pieces together.
This one is terribly eroded, but you should be able to see buried at sea. In memory of James, who was killed by the Indians near Julesburg, Colorado, in 1867. Lucille McCullough Craft. She loved flying. She loved people. She lived with a sense of humor. Her only regret, she never wrote a book. Lynn Fenimore Cooper. This is in the Cooper graveyard in Cooperstown. Died in 1959 at Cebu, Sarawak, buried at Kennewick. O'er the fruitful land and across the sea comes the splendor of noble deeds, unquenchable forever. Renville, and I like the bottom line, lady close to mother. He is. She has knit the last stitch. She has spun the last skein. No morn shall awake her to labor again. She was 89. I know I showed you this before. Here lies Blinky the clown. Doesn't know whether he's going up or down These humors are so far apart, I have to show them wherever I go. And the funniest one. Ma love pop, I love milk. Ma caught pop, the 2-inch swimmer. Here lies pop. I think that's probably the last slide of this. And I have just a few I'd like to read to you. And I keep talking and talking. But I want to tell you this wonderful one that I found on the road. One of my favorite things is how people died. I'd love to know that. They were killed by the fall of a tree, or they fell off a train, or fell off a house, or shot by someone. And I'm going to give you a few others and end with that one. Here's a biblical one. Set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. I like to think that's my mother speaking to me. Set thine house in order. There's a new one. One about age. The woman was 98. Worn out with age, her body sleeps. No more she sighs, no more she weeps. In Christ the Lord she put her trust, and he will raise her slumbering dust. Here's a short one. Meet me in heaven. There's sort of a belief in afterlife and a warning. Now she is gone to realms above and left our hearts to sorrow. We'll prepare to meet her there, perhaps tomorrow. Speaks of someone's character, was a native of Ireland, by industry and honesty, has merited a worthy character. And I have a few of the Pettits. This was a sad one. The baby was 17 hours old. This was in Kinney Settlement. He lived, roamed, expired. This one I'm still trying to figure out. It's for Lucy Pettit, died in 1812. She's gone, and to my frenzied mind rushed wild impatience, doubt, distrust. Religion whispered, be resigned. To take thy idol hence was just. There's another one from 1870 in that same graveyard. Little boy. How soon my morning sun flew down the western sky. Just as my soul began to live, my body's doomed to die. Here's a marathon, cause of death, 1834. This man received a fatal blow by an unruly beast, and left this world of pain and woe to dwell with God in peace. Okay, here's my newfound Ophelia for Marcus Lafayette Davis, son of, and it's not Julius, it's I-U-L-U-S. Iulus, and I looked at every gravestone that had that man's name, and it was an I everywhere. And Clarissa was the wife's name. He died in 1830. He was almost 6 years old. And it has to do with the cause of death, and I'll tell you in advance. It looks like he was gored with a stick. The fatal stick my neck did gore. Forthwith my vitals blood did pour. Away mysterious, early sent. Alas, 'twas fate's dread accident. I don't think we'll ever know more about it, but it kind of makes an impression, doesn't it?
More you need.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, that's all the talking. I'm just going to show you how I read epitaphs when there's a trouble one. I didn't bring my squirt bottle of water, but I have a squirt bottle of plain water. I have this very soft 100% horsehair, made in USA, shoe brush that I got either the Kmart or Walmart. It's very soft, and it's acceptable to use something that's very soft. So if I'm having trouble reading the epitaph, I get my squirt bottle and I go spray, 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 and stuff kind of starts dribbling down. And then I take my shoe brush and I do a little rub on it and usually get some of the stuff off. And then I squirt again and rub again, squirt again and rub again. By then, hopefully, you'll be able to read at least part of it and pick out words. If I'm having a really tough time, I get a nice powerful flashlight. So if this is the gravestone and I've already washed it, I hold the flashlight at a side angle, and that will give, it's not a reflection, it's a shadow, thank you. So that sometimes you can read words, and particularly if it's a dark graveyard, you can pick things out that you might not otherwise. I've also found going a different time of day makes a difference. If you're there in the morning, try it in the afternoon. And lots of times I'll get everything but one word, and one word, what is that word? And sometimes if you just try to reason it out, what would they have said, and sooner or later you can make some sense of it. Another trick that people do for photographing is to use a mirror and try to set the mirror up and try to reflect sunlight into the gravestone. I have never had good luck with that, usually because I'm the only one there. And then I had this big mirror and it was in the trunk of my car and I went over a bump and it broke. And so I haven't had good luck. I also have not had good luck rubbing, although if I were really stuck on one, I would try it. Get a piece of paper, Portland Standard sells rolls of their newsprint with nothing in it. And you can get a lumberman's crayon at any hardware store or lumber company and tape it on with freezer tape, something that comes right off, and try just rubbing it very carefully. But as I said, I don't really have the technique down. But if you're desperate, you're desperate. And unless there are questions or comments, maybe some of you would like to talk about good epitaphs or what you've seen.
I'm going to write Charlie Shays.
Are you? What's it going to say? What's it going to say?
Oh, that's a secret. Charlie won't even know.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be back here. Give me a reason to come back again and find that wonderful epitaph.
Those are great.
They're not all good. It gets kind of discouraging. You walk around in the same one, the same one, the same one, and then you just hit it lucky.
Very good.
Good. Well, thank you. Nice to see you all again.
Thank you again, Chris. Yeah, sometimes, you know, it's wrong with the flashlight and just put it at the right angle and think on it. That would like come out.
It does, if you're lucky.
Yes. Rice paper, which is very strong. That's what I'm thinking.
I didn't show you my trowel.
Yeah,
That's for digging
yes,
when
you
they're,
should. That's a nice
yeah,
trowel.
yeah.
Is that dirt on that trowel?
Yes, it is.
You're supposed to wash those every night.
Okay, I will. Actually, I think probably some of it's rust.
I don't want you to get careless.
Okay.
Okay.
My mentor, the person who first interested me in epitaphs, has written a book. She always said she was going to, and she has. And it's called Meet Me in Heaven. And I told her I would bring some tonight in case anyone wanted to buy one, but she's out of print. She's gone out of print twice. It's a wonderful book.
So you don't have any?
No. No, but I can give you, it says, please direct all correspondence and book orders to isn't that neat? She's done a wonderful job. Just wonderful.
My house has a lot of tombstones around it, and the front step is, I found out it was a tombstone. Maybe never used, but it was a tombstone. So we pulled that off several years ago. There was carving on it. It was pretty soft stone, and it had the little inscription about, "As I am now, so ye shall be." It was kind of cheery, kind of little verse.
Any names on it?
I don't know. It was starting to wear away, and then we took it off some years later and looked at it, and by that time, the inscription had pretty well come off.
Yeah.
You couldn't read
Yeah,
it.
yeah. They seem to do that. Either they were unused or they took them up.
Yeah. So I don't know whether a carver lived in my house or someone stole tombstones. or-
Could be. Yep.
What it was.
I know of a place where they built sidewalks with them, so.
Yeah.
Now, are there any gravestones around the
That was
yard?
one of the Clough family.
Really?
Daniel, I think, Daniel Clough.
We had Cloughs. What were their names, Charlie? There were Cloughs that were here.
Clough,
Carl Clough.
It was Carl Clough, World War I veteran.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because my gosh, is the stone still there?
I think that's, in the course of remodeling and bulldozers working on, I think it got lost. But there still is a Maud Tolman stone, and I think she died at 4 years of age. And I know where that is, that's right next to my house.
So there must have been a graveyard there.
I don't think so. I think they brought them in lots of times.
Here, affiliates.
Right down Route 80 near Goodrich Road.
I was gonna see if you're one of the missing cemeteries.
Well, we've never found any bodies, but when I was remodeling the back of the house, there was a cistern back there.
No, that's right.
And we'll fill that up with a tombstone or two.
Oh, that's great.
The good thing about it is she has personally seen them with the stones, so, you know.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
So she's been around, huh?
So it's out of print.
She keeps having more printed.
Oh, okay.
It's a self-published. She could not get anybody to print the
Right,
book. And
okay.
so she self-published it. And she keeps getting lots of 100 or 200 or 500. And they
Okay.
just, every place she goes, they sell out.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, you did receive a little book I sent on Epitaph.
certainly did.
in the
I thought that
town
was
copy.
wonderful.
Would be wonderful for Fabius to
Yeah, do one.
To do
Yeah,
one.
right.
Yes, it would. I was very impressed with that. And the fact that you had done it, when was it, 70s, would you say?
No, we did it in 90, in the
90.
90s.